Grieving. Is there a right way or a wrong way to do it? Good morning, this is Toad Logs from the Morning Show, and this is a more serious show I'm going to do today, and it's going to probably be a little bit long because I just need to talk. You know, I just recently lost an uncle due to cancer brought on by complications because of his long-term alcoholism. And I have to say, people out there, if your body's telling you something's wrong, don't ignore it. If you're scared, you know, go talk to a family member or a friend, and don't ignore it, okay? Because it's so much harder on the family to know that you didn't speak out, you know, that you knew this was happening and you just let it happen. I mean, we're here to give you strength, but you have to take it. I mean, because otherwise we're just, it's horrible. It's really horrible to find out that your loved one has gone, you know, 5-6 months with symptoms that tell you there's something wrong with their body, and they just ignore them. And especially with cancer, you know, the sooner that it's detected, the more chance there is that there will be a recovery. So anyways, today's show is about grieving, and is there a right way and a wrong way to grieve? I personally believe that there is no wrong way to grieve. People grieve in so many different ways. Some people shut down. They just stop functioning altogether. They just, you know, basically curl up in a little ball, figuratively or actually, and they just shut down. They don't think about it. They just don't do anything. Other people will, you know, occupy themselves with other things to think about, so it's harder to think about the death in their family. Some people have a good cry. And from what I understand from scientific research that I have heard of, that seems to be the best thing to do, is to cry and let it out. It seems to be the most healthy. But as guys, we're told not to do that. And I've never been a big buyer into this. You know, it's not manly to cry. I think it's exactly the opposite. But we were told we're not supposed to. You know, it's weak. It's a sign of weakness. And I don't believe that's true. I think that crying is completely acceptable for anything. You know, if you're happy, you can cry. You're sad, you can cry. You can cry because you're constipated. I don't care. If you have to cry, cry. You know, I don't care if you're in a public, you know, place and everybody else feels uncomfortable. Just do it. You have to do it. Do it. Just cry. Other people, let's see, how else do people grieve? They get angry. Some people get angry. They yell at everybody. They blame everybody. And that's acceptable too. I mean, that's harder on the other people who are trying to support you, but it's acceptable. I mean, if that's how you cope with it, fine. Just do it. And you know what? Somebody's acting like an ass because they just lost a family member, let them. If they're not physically harming you or anything like that, just let them. Just understand that they need to do that. You know? So there's all kinds of different ways to grieve, and I personally don't believe they are in any way, shape, or form wrong. If you disagree or have a comment, leave it in the crotch box below. Feel free. I want to talk about this, so don't worry about hurting my feelings or whatever. I just, you know, I need to talk about this. I have seen a lot of people who, you know, they have to occupy themselves. They don't want to think about it, and they basically just do other things to show up. Like I seen people go to work just the next day, just after a very close family member die, and you know what? That's what they had to do, and that's completely fine. And that one seems to be the hardest one for people outside to cope with. If somebody's not dealing with it right now, which is what they need to do, a lot of people comment that they're not dealing with their death. You know what? Everybody's different, and every death is different. I have, you know, pretty much middle-aged now, and I've seen a lot of my older generation pass on. Sorry, my computer's singing to me. I've seen a lot of the younger generation, people younger than me, starting to pass on for stupid reasons, accidents, suicide, stuff like that. I mean, it's always horrible when somebody's child dies, and I don't wish that on anybody. And my generation is starting to pass on because of natural and brought on things to people I went to school with, and my friends and stuff are passing on for, you know, things like heart attacks and stuff like that. And I think it's really, really young for it to happen. But you know, death doesn't always give us that opportunity to live until we're a ripe old age. So if you've lost somebody that you care about, there is no wrong way to grieve. Whatever you have to do, do. If you need to talk about it, I know it makes people uncomfortable. In North America, we don't talk about it enough. We just don't talk about it. We don't accept death much. We put it away in a little box, and we keep it there, and we try to pretend that death is not part of life. And death, I mean, is the biggest part of life. You know, I don't. It just, you know, I've seen shows where people live forever and stuff like that, and they're never really happy. I think we need death to keep us honest, I guess. I know that we have to, you know, live life to the fullest. If we think, you know, when you're young, you think the world's gonna last forever, and you just don't do anything. You just party and whatever. If we were little, you know. I recently watched the movie Dorian Gray, based on the Portrait of Dorian Gray book, and the character in there is going to live forever, so he indulges in his, you know, every whimmed fantasy, because he knows he's not going to die, and you know, it just eats away at him. And I mean, it's a book, people are contemplating blah blah blah, maybe living forever will be wonderful. They're actually working on that scientifically. They're working on some kind of thing that will cause cell degeneration to stop and or replace it with T cells so that we could live on. I'm sure that there's somebody working on actual brain transplants, so you can grow a clone and move your consciousness to the clone's body. But all of that's in the future, and I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, when I was young, there was this thing called the population explosion, which was going to cause the destruction of the world, because we were going to overpopulate to the point where we wouldn't be able to support ourselves anymore. And some people who are around still have remnants of that going on. It actually isn't true. We've reached a point where actually the population is deep-loading, which means that we're not having as many babies. Now, there's some people who believe that that's because of the chemicals and crap that the government's been throwing in our food to control population. But mostly it's because people choose not to have as many babies now. There's options. You can use birth control. You can, you know, there's all kinds of options. I've never been a supporter of using abortion as a birth control method. That's none of my business, though. If somebody else decides that that's what they want to do, I disagree with it. And if they ask me, I'll tell them so. But it's not my job to tell them what the hell to do with their own bodies. So anyways, there was this population explosion thing that we were going to have 12, 15 billion by now, and it never really happened. And it was partially because the government in other countries like China took steps to reduce the population, but those steps actually backfired. China is expected to have a population deplosion where they will drop down in the next 20, 30 years to 700 million. When the older generation dies out, the new generation isn't going to be able to replace them. And the reason for this is because there's only one child allowed in China, and because China values men over women. Most people are having boys there. Well, there's not enough girls to go around. So their next generation is going to even be smaller than the current generation that's replacing the baby boom. So that kind of backfired on them, and they're not going to have enough people to support the older generation as they get older. And I'm saying generation a lot. And in North America, we have a negative population growth. Most of Europe has negative population growth. That's because people choose not to have as many babies for economic reasons. We want more stuff, so we have less babies. And less babies die. I mean, there was a time when most of your children would die while they were young. So people had huge families. And this is still true in some parts of the world. But medical science has got us to the point where most of your children are going to live to be old enough to have their own children. So people don't have as many now. You know, it's not unusual for a person to have 1 or 2 children, and that's it. And to have them later in life, because they don't have to worry about birth equaling the death not only of the child, but sometimes of the mother. And I'm not sure how I got here from where I started, but we were talking about grieving, and there's no right or wrong way to grieve. So this is my way. I'm talking about it. I've gone through all kinds of different things in the last couple of days, including just, you know, frying my mind with games and movies, trying to not think about it. Had a couple good cries. I've thought about it a lot. You know, even with my, you know, you're watching television, you're watching games, you're playing games. Sorry, I'm just, and then of course there's death in all of it. I mean, it's such an important part of our life that it's in everything we do. Even things like Disney movies have death in it because it's such an important part. So we need to talk about it. And since talking on this show is what I do, I figured this is the best place to do it. So let me know what you think about grieving. Is there a wrong way? Is there something that I didn't mention that is wrong? Is there a better way than crying? Do you feel that you can't cry? I know my father has trouble with that. I've got a lot of alcoholism in the family, and I've lost a lot of uncles and aunts because of it. You know, complications because of alcoholism. And my father was really, you know, he's really my hero because he was the one in the family, his side of the family, who was able to stop the chain. And that's a hard thing. When all of your support group is doing something and you decide not to do it, that's so hard. So my hat's off to Dad, because Dad, you did something that would have been so hard, you know, so incredibly hard. And I'm hoping that because of this, you'll be around for a long, long time, because I'm not ready to lose you yet. Oh. So, yeah. I'm just ranting here. I'm just rolling. I'm just going with the flow, and it's going into all kinds of different tangents. And my brain is like, just, it's functioning in so many different directions at once because of what's happened, that I'm having, you know, I just go off in different ways, and I'm sorry. This video is going to be a little long and a little bit crazy, so I want to thank everybody for watching my show. You've made this a great experience, and I've got to go through this grieving thing, but then I'll get back to doing shows like I have been. So thank you, everybody. Good day.